We're heading into the second half of winter, and the month of February can be very cold and also be one of the snowiest months of the season. Plus, we're looking at multiple winter storms likely over the next couple of weeks in a very active pattern. So we're going to break down the details for you and kind of give you an overview of the next couple of weeks ahead. So let's take a look at the overall vorticity map. And going forward, we're going to be looking at two areas of disturbed weather. First, up there into the Great Lakes, as well as into the Northeast. You see this little clipper system right here. That's going to be bringing more snow showers. You're going to be diving down in from Canada, dropping down through the Great Lakes into the Mid-Atlantic, as well as into the Northeast for the next couple of days, especially as we head into Monday and Tuesday and next week. And then we'll be also watching this area of disturbed weather down here into California. That is an upper level low that will likely form, actually sending them some beneficial rains for those areas into Southern California. And that's going to be moving across the desert Southwest, also bringing some beneficial rains for them. And it's going to be a slow moving system, folks. This is going to eventually form into a cutoff low, and a cutoff low can overperform because just the slow nature of these systems. Look, as we move the needle through Wednesday of next week and heading into Thursday, it really doesn't go anywhere, right? And each time it builds a little bit colder. And so as it does, some of that rain is going to be transferring over to snow, especially in the higher elevations like Flagstaff, those areas back into Santa Fe. But look how pronounced the clipper system is by then. Wednesday and Thursday up there across the Great Lakes into the Northeast. That's when I think we'll send some beneficial snows and some of the heavier snows across that region. But as we head into that Thursday afternoon, we're going to be sending spokes of energy out ahead of it. So it should be just a wide area of showers and thunderstorms for a good part of Texas. And some of that energy is going to be transferring over to snow, especially there into New Mexico, maybe in far west Texas. And that could be the beginning stages of our first winter storm that could swing up the Texas Panhandle into Oklahoma, through Kansas, all the way up into Iowa, there through Wisconsin, northern Illinois. That's going to be the first winter storm. And look, we have another one. We have another one that's going to be waiting in the wings behind it, because there's another system diving down there from the desert Southwest, and that also gets energized and takes somewhat of a similar track. Far west Texas, the Texas Panhandle, up there into Colorado, into New Mexico, back into Kansas, swings up into Iowa, and through the north central U.S. up into Wisconsin. And look, folks, we could possibly even have another one. So we're seeing waves and waves of energy, and especially these get a little bit further south the deeper we get into the first week of February. So as we flip the calendar to February, it's definitely looking really active. And now let's take a look at some of the temperatures and where we are, because we're going to go a little bit of a rebound. Obviously, we've been really cold for the last week or two with that first polar vortex intrusion that sent that Gulf Coast blizzard all the way down into the deep south. And ironically, with that jet stream spread, that intense storm that's happening in Ireland right now, they had some 50-foot waves out there, and some of the pressure drops all the way down. They had over 750,000 people without power. That was a really bona fide, a super bomb cyclone actually ignited, and one of the bigger storms we've seen in a long time out there. And that was actually the leftovers from that Gulf Coast system. So now we're kind of coming out of that, right? We're still below average. These are your temperature anomalies. So everywhere that's in purple and back into green, that is your below average temperatures. And notice the warmer anomalies over the top back into Alaska and as well as into Greenland. But as we move the needle on the temperature map, you can see eventually over the next couple of days, that air is going to modify. And as it does, especially by the time we head into, say, Wednesday of next week, where does the cold air go? Back up into Greenland, back up into Alaska. So we're going to be doing a kind of a complete 360, if you will, with the temperature version as we start to come out of some of that Arctic air and sending some of those colder anomalies back up into Alaska. But That doesn't last long, folks, because as we end the days with that first Clipper system, obviously with that Clipper system, that alone is going to be bringing down the temperatures. So there you could get another cold air intrusion up there into southern Canada, back into the mid-Atlantic, as well as into the Northeast. That will be during Thursday and Friday with that Clipper system. And then look what happens further south, right? There is that upper level low that transfers into a cutoff low and just kind of really takes its sweet time. So that's where I think we're going to be starting to see some heavier snows break out with some much colder anomalies down there in West Texas into New Mexico, getting into the Panhandle. And as it swings up northeast, it'll bring some snow along with it. But look what happens. All that cold air comes back out of Alaska, right, and drops into our western states. So that's why we'll have multiple systems coming out of the west and then lifting northeast with those colder anomalies, with the PNA dropping well negative. That's going to send some of the coldest air mass of the season for those areas across the west. You're not going to miss out on this. So there's actually going to be bringing some beneficial rains and some heavier snows down there into the desert southwest, and that's what's going to be bringing with the fruition of those beginning winter storms. So as we head into, say, that February 3rd, February 4th timeframe, look at the colder anomalies getting a little bit colder and colder back here into Colorado, as well as into Wyoming, getting further ahead into Kansas, back into Texas again, into the desert southwest. A little bit warmer anomalies because the cold air comes from Alaska this time, dropping down from the west. And as we move through the 4th and 5th, that just sinks a little bit further south, especially with those series of storms. So because we're going to be laying down a fairly decent snowpack with that first system, and then the second system has to go over that snowpack. So that's going to keep that second system definitely colder than what it would have been without that first system. And that brings those colder anomalies well back into Texas again and all the way down into Mexico with those systems moving down. So that's going to be coming from the west and then likely lifting northeast with those winter storms trailing in its wake. So we definitely are looking like a colder and active period ahead, especially as we move through that first week of February. So looking at the surface map, this is your latest European, and what we're looking at is first Clipper system, right? So we'll see these waves of snow coming through the Great Lakes. Originally started off with the lake effect snow up here across Wisconsin, back into Michigan. And as that flow gets a little bit more pronounced, we'll start to increase those snow opportunities with those waves and waves of moisture. There's a second one that comes through on Monday night into Tuesday up there across the Great Lakes into New England, swinging across into the Northeast. And there we have another system. So you get these waves and waves of energy, with the strongest one likely on Wednesday heading into Thursday. That would be your 29th and 30th time frame, and bring in some heavier snows. But as that cutoff low gets a little bit stronger and as it just sits there, that's when I think some of that rain will get cold enough to transfer to snow, and it just gets even denser and denser the longer it sits there. And these cutoff lows have a capability of likely overperforming just because of the slow nature with them. They don't really move anywhere, so they can literally just kind of stall out there in West Texas and New Mexico into the Texas Panhandle, sending a cold rain out ahead of it, and then just heavy snows underneath that cold core. And then once it lifts northeast, it's likely going to bring some heavier snows back into Oklahoma, getting into Kansas, through Iowa, back into Missouri, as well as into the Dakotas, through Nebraska. So for those areas that kind of been missing out on the snow, you're not going to be missing out with these systems ahead. Because so once that moves through Wisconsin, yeah, we've got another one just waiting in the wings, folks, and that's got to go over that snowpack this time. This would be February 2nd. This is ironically Groundhog Day, with another system coming in from the Utah back into areas of Arizona. This is when Flagstaff likely is going to get crushed, maybe even Tucson's likely going to be getting some snow by then, and as well as in the mountains of New Mexico, back into Colorado, and that's going to be swinging down into Texas again with more snow into far west Texas, and likely more snow into portions of Oklahoma, through Kansas, through Nebraska, back into Iowa again, as well as into Wisconsin. And again, look what happens. There could be even yet another system waiting in the wings of that one once we hit, say, the 5th and 6th time frame with more snow, because each system has to go over those snowpacks, all right? So it's going to get a little bit further south every one it comes across, and that could also create another winter storm. So we're looking at multiple winter storms over the next couple of days. That was your latest European run. So I'm just showing these two different global guidances right now on the overall pattern. So we'll have that Clipper system, right? That'll be during the day on Sunday, heading into Monday, bringing some snow showers across the Great Lakes as well in New England. A little bit more pronounced on Monday night into Tuesday. And then a little bit more pronounced, even more pronounced as we head into Wednesday and Thursday. And then there's that cutoff low ahead on the American guidance, bringing those colder rains into Texas by the time we head into Wednesday night. And that will bring the cold core anomalies just sitting there over New Mexico again, back into West Texas, maybe the Texas Panhandle, just overperforming. Some of these areas could easily get a foot of snow, folks, even more than that. It's just as long as it just kind of sits there for a day or two, even maybe 3 days, just sitting there with dragging down that colder air and just sitting there spinning and spinning, wringing out its precipitation into the Texas Panhandle, Oklahoma, there into Kansas. As we flip the calendar to February the 1st, that'll swing over to Kansas, back into Missouri, as well as into Iowa. And then there's that second potential winter storm diving further south, right? Setting up a new storm that could likely unfold across the Central Plains. So you're looking at a very active period ahead. So we'll be breaking down the details and more in depth on this channel. So I just want to kind of give you an overview of what we're looking at, because we're definitely looking at it to be an active period going forward, especially as we flip the calendar in the month of February with multiple winter storms on the table and a snowy period ahead. So guys, I appreciate you guys watching. Do like this video, definitely hit the subscribe button, and catch me next update. Why I protect you before and after the storm.